This reunion episode of Teen Mom 2, which is like part 2 of 4 reunion-based episodes, so hope you guys like reunions, starts with Brianna. First, Dr. Drew and Nessa talk about the elephant in the room, not Brianna's ass, but the fight, and they recap a bit of her storyline over the season. Brianna says Kale tried to fight her first, and that things had escalated over time because of things Kale was saying about her while she was dating Javi. She says Kale talks a lot, but plays the victim when anyone retaliates. Brittany says that it's so stupid to be fighting over a guy, Javi, who isn't even worth it, especially since neither of the girls are even with him anymore. Brittany also sort of apologizes for attacking Kale, but says it wasn't planned and she was just defending her sister. Yeah, it wasn't planned, sure. Sorry, but that look we got from last episode says otherwise. All siblings know this look. It's like the international, we're doing something bad and not telling mom look that all sisters give each other when they get away with something. Britt also calls out Brianna and says she didn't have to come out on stage like that, even if Kale started it. I thought she made a good analogy when she said, well, if Kale jumps off a cliff, would you? But then she ruins it by saying, well, because if you jump off the cliff, Brianna, then I'm going also. It's like she's just on the verge of realizing how unhealthy, codependent she and her family are on each other. But then the metaphor just goes right over her head. And believe me, Brittany, Brianna probably isn't worth jumping off a cliff for. Brianna continues talking about respect and that she won't just stand there and allow herself to be disrespected by Kale. Then she's all, wah, I don't want to do this anymore, Dr. Drew, as in the show, which we all know translated from teen mom to English means she'll pretend to quit, then realize she can't afford rent or new tattoos, and then unquit after 3 days max, which is precisely what happened. Dr. Drew asked if Brianna moved on from Javi to someone else, and she vaguely kind of says yes. She says Devon is working now, and Dr. Drew is all, wow, congratulations! As if that's not the bare minimum requirement to be a functioning adult. Everybody works. The bar is set so low for these people, it's kind of insane. And apparently all that work is just too much for poor, tired Devon, because Bree says that he's not been being a dad lately, and all he does is sleep all day, play video games, and stay at her place rent-free. She says he tries some days, and some days he fails. At GTA missions, that probably is. When it comes to being a functioning adult, he pretty much fails at that every day. Bree says her own mom covered for her own deadbeat dad's shortcomings like she is doing now for Devon. And Lewis, who is back in New York and doesn't ask how Stella is doing. He does pay for her daycare, though. When discussing her various terrible choices in men, she puts her head down to cry. And we stare at her scalp for a very awkward, long-winded, 30 to 45 seconds. That probably should have been edited down, but it wasn't for some reason. Real quality TV. I guess maybe she's scared of becoming the next ugly cry meme, that's why she covered her face, but she really shouldn't deprive us of meme-worthy content. Dr. Drew also sympathizes with Brianna and says someone should acknowledge her for being so good with her kids, and that she needs to know that it's these guys that are the crazy ones, not her. What? Brianna isn't crazy? Does Dr. Drew have short-term memory loss? Not even 12 hours ago, Brianna was screaming like a banshee, "Let me go!" Kicking the security guard, dress riding up while she threw stuff at Kale like a psych ward patient. That's not crazy? Dr. Drew, just shut up. I don't think you even know the name of the show you're on anymore. He also keeps cursing way more than he usually does, notably only on Brianna's segment. Hello, fellow kids, I am Dr. Drew, your young and hip talk show host, desperately trying to compete with Nessa for my oversized MTV reunion hosting paycheck. After the sisters, Devon comes out. He says Brianna invited him over for Thanksgiving, but that she also invited Javi and Dre, and Devon wasn't up for the ex-boyfriend family reunion. His actual words are that he didn't want to be just one of her old hoes up in her house. Actually, the thought of that experience was so dreadful to him that being alone in a hotel room with alcohol and McDonald's was preferable to him on Thanksgiving Day, which is exactly how he chose to spend it instead. Nessa calls Devon a sincere soul for some reason. I guess because of his sense of humor, he seems like a nice guy, but that seems to be all he has going for him. Devon says he doesn't want to be in a relationship with Brianna anymore, but would at least like to be cool with her. When asked if he has a girlfriend now, he says he has a few, but he's obviously joking because that would probably require the effort of leaving the house, not to mention having a car, and then where would he bring them back anyway? His ex-girlfriend's house that he's currently living in with 3 crazy women and 2 kids, one of which isn't even his? Yeah, I don't think any girl is going to be throwing themselves at him anytime soon. Next up in the hot seat is Kale. She says she's shocked at how things played out on stage because Bree backed off when it was just the 2 of them in the room. Kale says hitting her would have shut Brianna up at least, and if she was at any other boy she would have gotten beat up. Much like how Kale hit Javi on camera a few years back when they were married, and hit Joe too. Seems to be a point of pride for her. And continuing to show her lack of insight, she says her one and only regret is that she should have hit Brittany first. Kale watches the recap of her season and says Javi and Brianna are fake. She calls Javi a manipulator and says that only in his presence you forget to hate him. Yeah, that must be an in-person thing only, because through the TV, Javi kind of has the opposite effect. She also accuses him of having a love addiction and that it's just his personality. She says that Brianna and Javi both used each other for publicity, and that in fact, another girl was supposed to go with him on that Florida trip at first. Kale had actually messaged that girl saying she's not allowed to meet her kids, and that poor girl ran for the hills when she got that message, and that's when Javi replaced her with Brianna. Moving on from the topic of Brianna, Dr. Drew brings up Chris Lopez filing for custody. Kale says she's just laughed when she got served papers that Chris filed. I think she did laugh, but not in the sarcastic way that she says she did. She probably started laughing in that psychotic way with like the eye twitching, saying something like, "Ha, Chris filed for custody. That means he loves me. Now I can see him every time we drop the kid off and I can finally handcuff him, tie him in my basement, and force him to marry me." Like Kale, maybe he just wants to see his kid. Anyway, he now has 4 supervised hours a week, and Kale gets along with his mom to arrange things. Kale says she's afraid to love someone as much as she loved Chris. She's never felt this way for anyone else, and she still loves him now, even though she knows it'll never work out. It's almost kind of sad to see her so obsessed with this guy that just does not really care. Kale was always so rude and so cold to Joe and Javi and Jordan, all her J's. But this dude, she just goes full Janelle-level obsessive mode. I wish Chris was on camera so we could decipher just what is so special about this guy. Dr. Drew also brings up Dom, and Kale denies that they were ever intimate or even in a relationship. Though Dom says otherwise, and even said she had to get STD tested after Kale. When Dr. Drew brings up the topic of Janelle to Kale, she says she doesn't like her, but she also doesn't think about her. Lastly, Barbara comes out and talks. She says Jace has ADHD and that Janelle doesn't give him his medication for it, seemingly just to spite Barb. She says that Jace comes back from Janelle's house so stressed that he puts holes in the walls. Wonder where he learned that from. Barb doesn't think Janelle is okay, and she says she reports them to the sheriff on a consistent basis. Her and Doris even morbidly joke about who David will shoot and kill first. Honestly, not even sure if they should joke, because it's not outside the realm of possibility with that weirdo. And that's all for the first half of this reunion episode of Teen Mom 2. Are you Team Brianna or Team Kale? And do you think Brianna is actually a good mom like Dr. Drew keeps saying she is? Let me know what you thought about this episode, and make sure to subscribe for Teen Mom recaps every week.